Alright, so everybody should have just gotten all of their Miles O'Brien St. Patrick's Day event store currency. From where your Alliance milestone, the final solo leaderboard event, also just paid out. So let's look at that particular event store real quick. All this stuff's going to get in the way. So, frames and avatars. I mean, this is up to you if this is something that you want. I never recommend getting these because they have no in-game value. Special currencies are kind of the same thing. This stuff is very easy to source through a variety of other means, so I really don't ever recommend picking up any of this stuff as well. So now we're down to ship refits. A couple of good ones here. If you don't already have them, Section 31 refit is very good because it changes your Discovery loot box. Gives you more officer shard pulls. It also adds Lorca to that shard pull. Now let's go look at the refits. It's actually easier to look at them this way. If we go into the armory. So we got ship skins. So we've got the Section 31 refit. It gives more officer shards and it adds Lorca to the pool of officer shards. This is a very good one to get. However, I don't think they give you enough currency to get the full refit, which is disappointing. Cerritos refit here increases the duration of your Cerritos buff. So instead of only lasting 4 minutes or 5 minutes, you get an extra 50% on top of it. So now you're lasting, 6 or 7 minutes. Which, as your Cerritos gets higher and you get to tier 5, there are a bunch of Cerritos events, additional events that you get when your Cerritos is tier 5 every Wednesday. One of them involves you buffing a ship and killing hostiles on a solo leaderboard to score points. So if your Cerritos can buff your ship for longer, then you can kill more things because you are limited by the amount of currency, the amount of buffs you can do. So if your Cerritos is at least tier 5, that refit also good, worth looking into. It's also good without it because you can, give yourself, especially if you're doing solo armadas, if you give yourself a Cerritos buff right before the first armada starts, and now your buff lasts 5 or 6 minutes, you can get 2 more solo armadas done in that time, possibly a third one done, all off the same Cerritos buff. So you can buff your best ship, and then it's got the buff through all 3 armadas. These Salvager refits are also pretty good. They give a huge boost to the base mitigation stats. Very helpful for when you're using your G3 ships, even into your low 40s where you're still using them for your solo armadas, you're still using them for PvP. Having those is also pretty solid. These refits are significantly less valuable now because, nope, that's not it. That's the wrong skin. Where are those? Here we go, TOS skin for the Enterprise. These give you a 70% boost to your weapon damage, only against hostiles. So 70%, not that great when you've got so many other things now that are adding to weapon damage, especially now with like the mess hall and command center and stuff that are adding to weapon damage. And again, it only works against hostiles, so you're not getting the bonus against armadas, you're not getting the bonus against other players. So those refits are not that great. And that's primarily what you have in here. The Salvager refit for the Fuchsia is also a good one. But again, if you need 120 shards to unlock it, and if they give you 45,000 currency, if that's kind of where everybody kind of settled in at on average, just approximating about 45,000 or so, you can get 30 of this refit, so you're a quarter of the way there. Maybe it'll help later down the road when we have our next event store, which should be in May. You'll already have a head start. But this particular refit is good because it allows you to convert Fuchsia parts into G4 ship parts. If you don't already, so if your Fuchsia gets to the point like mine is, where it's about as high as I can take it per my ops level, So I could either just keep doing it and stockpile and fuchsia parts so I'm ready to go to the next level, or I can convert those extra fuchsia parts. So this pack right here just gave me 1,700 fuchsia parts. But if I can't level my fuchsia up any further, I'm like, what else could I do with that? Well, I could convert those 1,700 parts into G4 parts. So I could open 2 chests for 1,500 and take a chance at what I'm going to get here in terms of extra ship parts, and just for science. I got 114 uncommon, 1,500 rare out of this particular pack. Not great, but I mean, if you're kind of just stuck, it can help you. You know, if it's per day, that's 800 a week. That can certainly add up over time to help you get to some of your extra upgrades and ship components and stuff faster. So that's also not a bad refit. But again, they're not giving you enough to get the whole refit. They're giving you enough to get closer to the whole refit. And then lastly, we have the Mantis. If you don't already have the Mantis, if whatever you can buy from here, because you get 1 per at 1,500 a piece. So yeah, you could afford. The maximum would be about 37,500, would give you 25 blueprints. Most players should have earned at least that much if you did your events. So if you don't have a Mantis, priority number 1 would be to take the 25 Mantis blueprints. They seem to keep limiting it to 25 at a time. So take the 25 now while you can. In May, we'll have an event store. Maybe we'll get incursions back before then as well. And you can source some more through that to get you closer. The Mantis, the ship itself is decent. But the refinery and sourcing the Strange New Worlds officers is what's incredibly more valuable for it, I feel like. Norwich asked, are we getting the double ship XP event in 6 hours? Yes, we are. We looked at the calendar. Thank you, Dean, for pointing that out as well. A says you're just about to level up Bashir. Yep. That's the last tab here, are officers. So if there are any officers that you are very close to unlocking or very close to tiering up, this is probably, if you have the ability with the currency to do that, that would also be a good thing to get. Like a lot of people came up, like I said earlier, on my alt account, I had 37 out of the 40 Bashir shards from the Deep Space Nine event arc. So I was 3 shy of unlocking him. So as soon as this store became active and I got the currency on my other account, first thing I did was I bought those 3 Bashir shards. He's an excellent officer, very good one to get. And in fact, I'm sitting here right now thinking, can I tier him up? And I think I can. I need 26 shards times 3 is 78,000, so no. I'm 800 short of getting the last shard. I'd be 1 shard short of tiering him up. But he is an outstanding officer. Kira, however, is only 2 shards shy of tiering up. And since we have stfc.space handy, I'm curious to see what her ability changes to. So her lower deck ability reduces opponents' critical hit chance by 10%. This is very big for PvP. And tiering her up actually changes that from 10% to 15%. So if they don't have anything that's boosting their critical hit chance, the average ship starts at 12% for a crit chance. If you have the prime, it goes from 12 to 22%. And then it comes back to officers. What officers are you using to boost your critical chance? If I take 15% right off the bat from Kira, if you don't have an officer on your ship that boosts criticals, you will never get a critical for that PvP fight. So if you don't have an Honor Guard Wharf or a Con or some type of strike team member that boosts your crit chance, you got nothing. No criticals for the entire PvP fight. Pretty significant officer. And just looking at groups, which groups do boost critical chances? Let's see. La'an gives burning and extra shots. Ortegas delays their weapons, and Una reduces their weapons, so nobody there is boosting critical. Ducat gives hull breach and increases weapon shots. Damar decreases their crit damage. Garrick increases critical hit chance. So Interceptor Strike Team has a mechanic to boost crit chance. Does he boosts shots? His captain's ability gives morale. Pawn decreases their crit chance. And he increases weapon damage. So Explorer Strike Team also does not have a standard deck slot officers, bridge officers, with the ability to boost critical hit chances. So if you are someone who PvPs a lot, Kira would be an officer to prioritize tiering up if you can, because you're going to guarantee that they never hit a critical that entire fight. So that's what we're going to buy right now, are going to be those two Kira Norris shards right here that I need to tier her up from tier 1 to 2. And that should certainly change things a little bit. Honor Guard Worf has sourcing through the Mantis. He's also in the Ultra Recruits, so not necessarily a priority there. Odo is a solid below deck officer as well because he boosts your critical hit damage. He's a hard one to source currently if you didn't get him through the Deep Space Nine event store, but they have thrown him out in a random event or two, different milestones like the Syndicate event or things like that. So if you can inch Odo a little closer to getting him unlocked, there may be events coming down the road that may let you get him the rest of the way. Cisco and Miles are great, but they're in the Bajoran faction store, so if you have access to them through that, you don't need to necessarily buy them here. Thanks, Pedro. And Changeling Kira is in there as well. My Changeling Kira is actually maxed because of pulls I've gotten from the event store, plus obviously the spy event. I got a whole big bunch of Changeling Kira shards from that to get a head start. And then the second half of it is Strange New World Officer shards. Una and La'an are not in the store, so those would be the two, the Mantis Refinery, so those would be the two I would say prioritize. Una at least has a little bit of extra sourcing between the Incursion event store and now she's in the daily chests, so you might get a handful of other Una shards. If you're close to unlocking her, maybe you inch it up a little bit the rest of the way. The rest of these officers, again, if you don't have a Mantis yet, and you bought all the blueprints you could and you still don't have a Mantis, and you're like, what do I do with my extra currency? Okay, maybe you put it into an officer over here. That might help you with your immediate gameplay. Maybe possibly just unlock one of them or tier one of them up. But La'an is the one who does not have sourcing, so she's probably where you might also want to consider putting the rest of your credits to try and get her closer to tiering up because of her below deck ability, boosting max cargo capacity, which is very good for a variety of things. If you're hostile hunting and you're farming parts for something, Axion, Borg, whatever the case may be, getting a big boost to that is pretty solid. Also, if you're base raiding and you put her below deck on the Amalgam, and now you get a big boost to your cargo capacity on your Amalgam. It's part of your cargo crew that you put on that ship. Can really have some added value there. I'm in a particular spot where I'm really far away from putting a dent in her. I could get what, about 20 shards. So that's kind of my thoughts on the old event store. Let's see what you guys have to say. Spend the rest on orb splinters. Yeah, no thank you. Dean can't recommend the Mantis more. It's worth it for the Syndicate XP and Strange New World officers alone. That's the other part of the Mantis Refinery. Like, the ship itself isn't all that spectacular. You know, the stinging thing is kind of cute and clever. This sources the parts to upgrade it. This sources the research to upgrade it. But getting the big chunks of Syndicate XP on a daily basis is pretty strong. And then there are other ways. There's 2 dailies that you can do to give you the fragments, so you don't have to do it from here. But, you know, if you wanted to, you could get additional fragments. And then this is what you have chances to convert them. Most of the time you get 2 of one of the rare officers. Occasionally you'll get a 5 of a rare officer. And then every once in a while they sneak in some of these guys. As you can see, I'm miles ahead of Pike compared to Hemmer in terms of where they are. I feel like Hemmer, I don't really seem to have luck getting Hemmer shards out of here. I'll get far more Pike than I will Hemmer on a consistent basis. I think my Pike was like tier 3 or tier 4 before I even had Hemmer unlocked. But it's another way to consistently source additional officers, and it's a strong group of officers to source. Pedro, you got the shards you needed to unlock Bashir and level up Ortegas for your augur so you can take on the freebooters. Leveling up one of those officers, again, definitely can make a big impact on a variety of things, the freebooters being one of them, for sure. Absolutely. Congrats. Samo, you won the Armada Crit event. All damn party shamrocks. Woo, congrats. Can't hang this morning, so lurking. Well, thank you very much for the lurk. Appreciate you stopping by. Mantis is at Shipyard 33 is where you can build the Mantis. Deathkill asks, you have a Combat 51 veteran mission. You are using a Tier 5 Kelvin. What crew would you suggest you use to beat it? What type of hostile is it? Tash, thank you very much for the hydrate. It's an Explorer. So now you're hitting against the triangle. So my first inclination would be to make sure you have Marcus on your Kelvin since you're going against the triangle. What tier is your Marcus? What percentage of his ability are we applying there? Yeah, where Dean's going kind of the same place I am with that one, which is 5 of 11 from extra mitigation, and Marcus to lower their mitigation. Since you're punching against the triangle, like kind of the Strange New Worlds guys won't necessarily work. If you're not having issues with your mitigation as much, and you don't need that extra synergy slot, I think Strange New Worlds Pike officer ability actually works. Whoops, I'm in the wrong tree. I don't know if he might only work against regular hostiles. Let me find him real quick. Yeah, he only works against regular hostiles. I don't think he's going to work against the gold bosses, so scrap him. He's not going to help there. Oh, it's easy. You just use 5 Giorgio and Tal. That's what you use to kill everything. No. You didn't buy Tal? Oh, you're screwed then. You can't do anything. No, that's not how it works. I'm just kidding. Sarcasm. Sarcasm. Yep. That's what I wanted to check, Dean. Thank you very much for that. Your Marcus is tier 4, so that's an 800% reduction. That should definitely do really well against that. So yes, I would either go 5 with another Borg officer, like 7, who's going to boost your health stats to kind of boost your mitigation values. The other option, and then Marcus in that third slot. The other option would be to put Khan, 5 of 11 with Khan and Marcus. That way you're getting more criticals. And if neither of those work, you might just have to be tier up a ship or get some more research and stuff done to get some more power, or use a Cerritos buff or pop an exo comp. Like there's all kinds of other little things, other little tricks, or double tap it. Send another ship in first to hit it and weaken its shields, so then you immediately attack it a second time. Pedro, you got a lucky Strange New World Pike shard, and Spock too. Awesome. Congratulations. Yeah, for those of you unfamiliar with the double tap and how that works, I'm pretty sure I have a whole video where I kind of go over that on my channel. I think it's in my advanced player tip. No, maybe it's in the basics one. Yes. It's a short little 5-minute video. It's called Stuck on Mission Bosses. Try the double tap technique. So that one will sort of just highlight exactly what you need to do. It's kind of what I just said. You just kind of stack 2 ships like right on top of each other. You attack with the first one, and as soon as that ship is destroyed, you're immediately mashing that button to attack the second one. Because while the hull health immediately restores after the ship is destroyed and the combat ends, the shields don't. The shields slowly regenerate, so if you're very quick, you can attack the ship before the shields go back up, and now it's starting with only like 70 or 60% of its shield health, hopefully lower than that. But even if it's only starting with, 60 or 70%, that's less shield damage you have to do the second time around. So it'll help you get it killed faster.